Hello, everybody. This is Ed K. Smith, the co-host of the Asset Show, here with the other fabulous co-host, Mr. Rob K. Hey, Rob.
G'day, everyone. G'day, Ed. G'day, Mark.
Yes, the man of the hour is Mr. Mark Monfort, who is the co-founder of the Australian Defi Association. How are you, Mark?
I'm very well. I'm here in a booth at the WeWork office I've just moved into, but I'm doing really well. Excited to be on the show. I've seen you guys in action with previous episodes. Some great guests. I have no idea why you've asked me on, but I'm here to find out. So,
Hey, because you're another great guest. That's why. Look, appreciate you saying that. Rob and I have been hunting out some good quality people to come on this show because they're the only people we want in this show, isn't that right, Rob?
Yeah, we've got a hardcore filter. We only let super special guests on, like yourself.
That's it.
Mark.
And Mark, you're sitting in a booth, so there's any chance you're going to turn into Superman and change and do a spin around. Let us know so we can capture it. So we say Mark is the real Superman.
I will let you guys know for sure.
Yeah, and hopefully you don't have claustrophobia, because I've been in a few of those booths you're in, and they're pretty tiny. They're good though, because you don't have to listen to other people's chitter chatter outside. You can have a nice quiet call like this. So that's great.
It's lunchtime now, and like I've got the office. So we moved into a WeWork just yesterday because we've got our own office space. So the business has grown and stuff, which is great. But then the others are out at lunch, so I didn't want to do this and have halfway through my other colleagues, come in. But they, you should get them on the show at some point too. They're all interesting characters. But yeah, it's really cool to talk about this stuff, and this is, I guess, good practice given there's some big events coming up this weekend. So
yeah. Mark's going to be one of the presenters at the Australian Crypto Conference that Rob and I are attending this coming weekend. I don't know whether we'll have this out by then, but we'll see.
Well, even if it's in the past, that's
it.
fine.
Yeah, that's it. And everything that happened on the Gold Coast will stay in the Gold Coast, because it can't make its way onto this podcast. So we'll be safe.
That's what editing is for. That's what the editing process is for.
That's it.
We're 95% live. 95% live, but there's 5% of little editing. If any of us look stupid, I try and cut that out, but sometimes I miss it.
Yeah, that's
you know what? That booth you're in, Mark, imagine in a couple of years when there's like 10 booths in every office, because to hop into, they'll be called metaverse booths. You hop in there, put your virtual reality glasses on, and that can't be far away.
And that way you're
exactly.
safe.
Yeah, that's
you
it.
You can't fall out of the building.
But as always, there will be people that will be fighting against the innovation, because that is just the way the world works. Like when newspapers came out and you see all these people on on the trains reading, full-scape newspapers, and people complain that there's no interactions. And then when people had phones, we're all looking down. There is always a complaint that is ingrained in humans. We always complain about those younger than us, and we deservedly so. I just turned 40 a week ago, and I feel like I have the right to complain about the Gen Z folks. I'm like, what are they doing? Right?
Well, I guess I don't know what percentage of the world, but a large percentage of the world fears change. I think that's what technology is. It's change, and they say, "Hang on a minute, I just got used to this." But the future doesn't wait.
No, that's it. You embrace it, or you're swept up by it. And I don't know all the ins and outs of my phone, my new Google Pixel 6a or whatever. Like, I don't know all the ins and outs, but I just know what it does and how it works for me to improve. And I think we'll see more of that. And that's, I guess, why we're here, because blockchain tech is a lot about that, isn't it?
Well, yeah,
absolutely.
As Ed says on the last few shows, it's we're scratching the scratch with all this blockchain and DeFi and crypto technology. We're talking about it now, but it hasn't fully hit mainstream.
No, exactly. So look, let's do a bit of a reversal of time. We'll go back in time and talk about where Mark came from in terms of a bit of a couple of minutes on your background and what led you into getting involved in the whole Web3 DeFi crypto space, because that's people always assume that everybody's a techie or everybody comes from a certain background or and that's not always true. I'm not saying it's not with you, but just a bit of a backstory, mate. How you got
Maybe
involved
even
in
let's go back to 11 years ago when Bitcoin came out. What were you doing?
Yeah,
Holy
there you go.
smokes. I was, well, 11 years ago would have been 2011, and I was working in consulting, software consulting. So I was an accountant by trade, did 2 years of auditing and realized that that's not for me. And kudos to my auditor friends out there that stuck it out, and some still there, which is great, and partners and all that kind of stuff now. But I fell into more analysis kind of work. So I was an analyst at a bank, and then I got tapped on the shoulder to go check out this thing like software consulting with these business intelligence tools, where it's like data analytics platforms that they were selling into, whether it's banks or government or whatever corporate. Just basically, instead of you using all your Excel spreadsheets and stuff like that and finicking around with those, like you have tools that can help you automate a lot of that, make prettier visuals, and then, do dashboards and stuff that help get to insights very soon. So, already since like that early on, I was always about workflow and automation and how to improve and make things efficient. And so I traveled a little bit, working in capital markets. So I was in financial markets, working for a bank called Canaccord Genuity, a Canadian investment bank. Worked for them in Melbourne. I was at a quant research startup before, so very statistical kind of minded. So like with my kind of software and analysis kind of skills, and then adding that to the capital markets and research. So that's where I kind of really thrived, working with a company called QMG in Melbourne. We got absorbed by Canaccord, this investment bank, and worked in Melbourne for a bit, and then moved to London for 2 years. And then I spent some time when I came back at the ASX as well, and still working in kind of wealth management and stuff after the ASX. And then I started my own data consulting firm with one of my current co-founders of the Australian Defi Association, as well as the commercial work I do. And from the consulting work that we were doing, we fell into the blockchain space because VC friend of ours basically was looking for some help with a project that he was looking into that was blockchain related. And we knew a little bit about it just from, being in investment banking. You have to kind of be aware of this stuff, even if I was very skeptical, because all I saw was just the cryptocurrency and the FOMO side of things. I didn't see that, Ethereum was built, and other chains now were building these ways of decentralizing basically programs and making things more efficient and the issues that you have around centralization. But that first project was a gaming guild, which is called Polemos. And so we're still doing stuff with those guys now, which is great. And we're doing some other stuff in the space, and we created the Australian Defi Association. But, getting from where I was in TradFi basically and being a skeptic, it took, I was aware of it in 2011, 12-ish, in the news. 2013 was seeing it a bit, but I still wasn't involved. And even in 2015, 16, when I was working at this investment bank, and I had colleagues that were mining Monero, they were doing things in the space already. And one of the traders, like, he went into, shout out to Benedict, he went into the crypto space, and he's still there in Europe. But I was seeing it, but I just wasn't really doing that much about it back then. But anyway, look, it worked out serendipitously, because given the kind of approach that we had to software and data consulting, being very community focused, being all about efficiency, and being very collaborative in how we kind of do things, I feel like those are like really key things. It's in Web3, it's really about me. It's about we, not me. It's about us. I always, whenever I do this, I always get the things the wrong way around when I first start off. And it sounds funny, like I don't mean it. It just happens that it's we, not me. It's us, not I. And I love the fact that, that kind of attitude and approach thrives in this space. Whereas in Web 2, it was all this selfish stuff. Like a quick analogy is that, like, building in this space, we learned very early on how powerful it is if you're starting out, when you're building Web 2, maybe you get a prototype out there to 80%, and then you start taking it out to market with customers and friendlies and all that. But if you do that in Web 3, if you've got something that's like a finished product, people are like, well, there's no chance for me to get involved. Whereas like if you start and build out in the open and have your ideas out in the open, you give the community a chance to rise along with you. It's
Yeah,
such a different
wow.
mindset. It's amazing. So we have loved being in this space so far. But yeah, that's the story about how I kind of started, and who knows where we're going. But yeah, we're loving this space so far. I am
Yeah,
anyway.
wow. I love your analogy of it's about we, not me, because that's the true essence of blockchain, I guess, because it's about decentralization. I've never thought of it like that, but that's a simplistic way to think about it.
Agreed. Yeah, it's a way that when you realize why is it better to have it, not everything, like I'm not a, it's funny, like I call myself Captain DeFi on the socials, like on Discord,
That's
on
great.
Twitter, it's Captain DeFi, because I chose, like, I just wanted a standout kind of name, maybe make it a little bit corny just so it's memorable. But
Yeah.
people often think that I'm a maximalist in terms of everything needs to be decentralized, everything needs to go on the blockchain. No, I'm a pragmatist in terms of, like,
Yeah.
when I was doing the analytic stuff, like, just because I have a hammer doesn't mean everything is a nail. And it's the same thing with blockchain tech. Like, so back in the day, like, sometimes the best solution was just doing stuff in Excel. It wasn't create a fancy graphic and a chart and in some fancy tool. No, if you need an answer quickly, contextually, you are better off just doing that analysis out of Bloomberg and into Excel. In the blockchain, it's the same. Some things make sense on the blockchain, and we do, like, so now I've got a group. So we've got the Oz DeFi Association, but in the background, I've formed a venture studio called Not Centralized, and we're very pragmatic in our approach. People come to us with their projects. We try to break them, as in not just the people. We don't try to break the people too much, but we try to break the idea, because people don't do enough battle testing. When it was a bull market, no one was questioning. People are just going, well, can you pay me for marketing? Okay, we'll do it. Rather than going, well, does this even deserve to be on the blockchain? And I think we need to think about that, because I would not
Genius. Yeah.
want to put my name to something where, yeah, I take the
But it
100.
money
doesn't
out.
need to be on the blockchain. It can be a
Yeah.
centralized database.
It could be a mix as well. There could be
Yeah.
parts of it, like a Web 2.5, some things
Yeah.
make
Yeah.
sense on the blockchain. Other parts of whatever it is they're doing, maybe
Mm.
be off chain. And we're already doing that. But it's funny when you get into the space, there's a lot of hype, a lot of people push. Everything needs to be decentralized. Everything needs to be away from regulation and stuff. It's like, guys,
Never going to be that way. That's,
it's a
yeah.
don't live in the vacuum. We are in the
No.
real world. And we'll talk about this more at the crypto conference, but it's like
Yeah,
something
great.
that people don't talk about enough. Realistic crypto to get to mainstream. So it's good
Yeah.
if we, this is the type of show that, I haven't heard all the other guests, but we definitely need to have more of these proper conversations about how to actually move the space forward together, because people, just because there is going to be regulation incoming, it doesn't mean it has to be the regulation that we've had before.
No.
We have a chance to inform the regulators and show them the good that crypto can do. So, that's what we're here for.
Yeah, and I
Yeah.
think Steve Vallis from who used to be in Blockchain Australia has that same mindset. People should go back and watch that show that we did with Steve Vallis as well.
Check it out in the show notes.
in the show notes. Remember that, Rob. But no, that's fantastic. So look, here's the thing. We spoke before we started recording that there's a lot of terminology. We cover this on other episodes that people use and bandy around. And I've been in the marketing industry for the digital agency for 20 years, and we've got all our own crap that we talk about, SEO and other things that some people still don't know what that is. But so DeFi, what does DeFi stand for, and how does it compare to CeFi? And explain those two, so we can start going down this rabbit hole of what that is.
Well, the D stands for decentralized. The E stand. No, I'm just joking. It's more. It's not even an acronym. It could be an acronym, but maybe we should think of something there. But it stands for decentralized finance. Decentralized finance, so DeFi, and CeFi is centralized finance, and sometimes people call it TradFi as well. So myself, the traditional financial markets, the exchanges like the ASX, the investment banks and hedge funds that I worked for and worked with, traditional finance, the retail banks like CBA and Westpac and all that. NAB and so all of those, and ANZ, sorry not to leave any of our friends out, but like all of those the TradFi, the centralized finance. And before explaining DeFi, let's think about CeFi. Centralized meaning that if you want to do anything to, I don't know, get a loan, transfer money, you have to go to these parties that are sitting right in the middle, that own your data. You don't really own that. They could decide to unbank you if they wish. We're lucky in a westernized world where we've not had to experience war-torn issues or dictatorial kind of powers and stuff. We get someone in that just makes all these laws and he's the dictator or she or whatever. We haven't had to experience turmoil like that. And so we've been okay. But the idea around decentralized is that the system of governance is distributed. It means that it's not just one group that owns it, it is multiple. And sure, there are some parties that are a bit more in power in terms of how many tokens they own on the chain and stuff. But because it's on the blockchain, it utilizes that technology that it's impervious to attack. There are ways to attack blockchains, right? But the purpose of the blockchain has been to avoid the double spend issues that that could be there with just like a simple kind of database. Because people ask, why don't you do things just on a database? Like some of the stuff that we're building, we could build it on a database. We could get it out to market. The problem is with that, it has limited growth potential. If we as founders, or even the later, whoever the owners become, or the majority, if centralized parties decide to kind of steer it in a certain direction that isn't in line with what the crowd wants, then there's more of an opportunity to do that in a centralized way, given that the power structures are more centralized. And what we saw, there's a really good podcast. I think it's Robert Breedlove, and this is one of my aha moments. Robert Breedlove talking to Raoul Pal from Real Vision.
Yes.
Great guy,
good episode, right? That one. Good
one. We'll definitely have to try to get him on the show, or both of those guys. But they spoke about the history of blockchain and how basically back in the day, even before blockchain, you had conflict, right? Humans were prone to conflict. We're emotional beings. We are the weakest link in any system, but we thrive as well. We've got good sides as well. England and Germany, 1800s, 1900s, were like building up their powers and finally went to war, World War One. Not just them two, and obviously it started in with other European kind of nations, but effectively they were the major powers. And when they went to war, and then there was the Germans had to pay back with all the inflations after they lost the war, that ruined their economy. It led them to another war, World War II. We had the Cold War, we had Korean War, we had all these conflicts leading into the 60s and yes, the Vietnam War. But even at that time, the world was getting into a stage where actually we've had so much conflict for decades. Like now it's all happy and stuff like that. And we had the people power and like the free love kind of way of doing things and stuff, and the hippie movement. And what that led to was all the baby boomers, right? And what happens when you have so many more people with demand, prices go up. And all that inflation that's continued and continued and continued, and printing of money and quantitative easing and the GFC and the issues that we've had there, it's really interesting because it's led to this movement. Like the GFC is what led to Satoshi writing the white paper for blockchain. And we saw that recently with the drama around CeFi versus DeFi loans. So yes, crypto shit went bad, and apologies for swearing, but like crypto went bad, right? But the CeFi organizations, whether it's like Voyager or Celsius, they're the ones that you have to go to court. You have to go to arbitration. You have to go through all these kind of steps to try to claw your money back. If it was a DeFi loan, which is on a smart contract, which it doesn't matter what you say or care about, if the smart contract says when this happens, you have to transfer money here, you've got no say. It just happens. So those DeFi loans worked, and that wasn't spoken about enough. DeFi worked exactly as it was meant to. It's just shitty that we didn't, like the people that were in charge of that were saying that they have risk controls, didn't have the risk controls, and it went to the bad loans. But when the shit hit the fan, it worked out the way that DeFi was meant to. And that's a lesson that that people aren't talking enough about. But anyway, I've
Yeah,
forgotten what we were talking about there. I've just gone off on a rant,
No, no,
tangent as I do.
that's what we're a long form conversation chat show.
yeah, yeah,
You're doing exactly
absolutely.
what we're meant to do on this show.
Happy to go down the rabbit holes.
Sure.
So in that sense, which is what you're saying is ironic, that's the pot calling the kettle black, the whole centralized finance system with all the shit they've done over the last 15 years. I mean, they're the biggest crooks on the planet because they, in my opinion, this is just my view, is that they're seeing all this stuff coming, right? And the smart ones are getting involved, and there's a whole heap of them who are still crapping themselves because they don't know what's going on. They're scrambling to try and understand it because they know they can see the tsunami coming. They don't know how to deal with it. So it's interesting that all this big money hasn't even started to come into the space yet. It's been there, but mostly it's been retail money that's come in. But the traditional sort of huge finance companies and businesses and banks, they're all starting to get involved. What are you seeing? Because you're on the coal face of this stuff.
I've been on that side. Yeah.
This is why you're the perfect person to answer it. What have you seen in terms of the mind shift in people who are in that space with money coming into the DeFi space now?
Yeah, it's an interesting question because I've come from that TradFi space and seeing former colleagues going into the Web3 space, getting jobs at different types of crypto firms, or even just coming to the events. So Oz DeFi, we started out of Sydney because we're based here, so a bit of a hometown bias, but we're now in 5 states and we run meetups on a monthly basis as much as possible, but some places it just depends on what's going on. But we try to run these meetups where it's either networking or we actually have panel presentations, and we're seeing a lot more TradFi people from government, people from non-corporates and others, like even not-for-profits coming in. There's so much interest, and I just think that given and even looking at the metrics, because I'm an analytics kind of guy, looking at the metrics, you can see that there are Glassnode is really great for this, and there's an Aussie there. I can't remember where he lives, but he is an Aussie. He's moved overseas and stuff. He does analysis for them, and all the YouTube videos, most of them are by this Aussie dude.
Oh, wow.
And I'll remember his name as I talk, but basically with Glassnode, they look at Ethereum and they look at Bitcoin, and what they were seeing with the major one, Bitcoin, was there is a lot of wallets, right, that have very little activity, and those wallets all of a sudden were seeing themselves getting filled with not just small amounts of crypto, but large quantities, which makes you think that these are more than likely, right, institutional players starting to get into the space. Or there's ones where the activity was basically they had some large activity and would just sit there for a while. The crypto would be sitting in their wallets. And then when it goes off their wallets and goes on to exchanges, they could see which exchanges it was going into, like Binance or Coinbase. But that kind of behavior is telling of a non-retail play, and seeing more of that activity. I think that, they were seeing the movements of that, and we're going to see it more. We see it in the news. Morgan Stanley executive, blah, 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 goes into the crypto space. BlackRock creates a Bitcoin trust thing, blah, blah, blah. I used to do a lot of work, and I still do, in the exchange traded funds, ETF space here in Australia. I do analysis. There's a show called AusBiz that I go on pretty much once a month to talk about that, and I'm going to do crypto stuff there too. I've been doing a bit there, so shout out to AusBiz. But looking at the ETFs, more and more type of crypto related, either they're tracking crypto or they are, so none of them are holding crypto at the moment. We don't have a spot Bitcoin crypto kind of ETF here in Australia or the US. There is in Canada, but all these other ones, they're tracking NVIDIA, AMD, they're tracking the miners, they're tracking companies that are relating to the Bitcoin space. So there is interest in many ways, shapes and forms from the TradFi industry, and even researchers now, these companies that do traditional market economic or fundamental whatever research, they're looking at this space as well, because this is where the attention is. This is the future of finance, and even people in fintech are looking at DeFi right now, because they know that, okay, finance and technology, when it's starting to mix in now, we see all these companies like buy now, pay later and all that kind of stuff, and open banking. And the natural progression is into Web3 because of the efficiency, because of the rails, the transaction rails that it is building. So I'm seeing a lot of it. I think we're still a long way ahead to go. It's still early. So if people are watching this, you can still get involved. I thought we were too late. We weren't going to make much of an impact, but just being in the space is like, whoa, there's still so much to do. We need people to come in. We need so much more people to come into this space to help build it right.
Yeah, 100%.
Do you know what we haven't talked about yet?
What's that?
Basically, let's bring up defi.org.au and we can literally talk about what the Australian DeFi Association is and how it can help people. And so this is Australian DeFi Association. When did you guys start up, and how do you help companies and individuals now?
Sure. So this is a website built on Wix, because I've built many other websites on Wix with other kind of startup.
There you go. Web 2, keep it simple.
Great domain name too, by the way.
Thank you. The domain name, and given that you guys understand the domain space pretty well with your backgrounds, with the brokerage there, I was surprised that it was not taken. defi.org.au was not taken.
The reason is you have to be an organization. So if a company or a sole trader with an ABN tried to register that, the registrars are supposed to stop them from doing that. So I guess that the system works in for your case when you are a legitimate organization that buys a .org.au domain name.
That's it. And so look, we started this last year. So the thoughts for this came up in October when we were first working in the space. And basically, we were just like a bunch of mates talking about how to learn, where to watch videos. We were watching YouTube videos. We were talking amongst each other in a WhatsApp group. And whilst that was going on and we were trying to find other people that we knew in the space, we basically started building this website. So if you scroll back to the top there, the things that we've got insights. So the drop down there is two things. It's our current newsletter, which is a Substack, and the older articles, which are on Wix. But everything in the space happens on like Substack or Medium. So we had to kind of choose. And because we do a weekly newsletter, and we've been doing it since October last year, so it's nearly a year of doing it, and it's sign up for free, and then you can hit the let me read it first kind of thing at the bottom there, and that basically takes you in there. But we do encourage people to sign up. So every Monday we're talking about what's happened in the past kind of week in events, in the news, in the data and stuff. And it's just something, it helps us. It's kind of like, in a way, it's good for us to do it anyway, even without an audience, because it helps us keep up to date.
Right?
Yeah. So we do that. And then the resources, if you click on that, like the first one, data, for example, we were talking about like analytics and things like Glassnode. Here's all these different kind of apps that are out there and what they do, and a bit of background on each of them, like the image is from those apps. So we thought we'd just keep a collection of this and some other resources that are in that resources
that's
drop down.
Great for people starting out. You can you can go here and cut their learning curve down as well.
That's what we want to do, because it's all about helping each other, because if we do that, we're going to get to that utopia sooner rather than later. And then back up the top, you were on our mission page before, and you've got like an about page and our sponsors that are there. So shout outs to them and how to get in touch. But the most important thing, I would say, click on sponsors. So we've got Macari, which is a wholesale exchange here in Sydney, and we've been using their space to run some meetups. And we've got Sensand, which is an ag tech, earth tech company. So very Web 2, but they're starting to play in Web 3, and they're our major sponsor down in Victoria. And Not Centralized, which is the venture studio that I run with my other partners, some of whom are the co-founders of Oz DeFi. And we're the ones that work on various kind of projects. So we poured money into Oz DeFi and resources, and we're the ones that kind of have basically built the rails. And now there's a whole lot of other volunteers and helpers around Australia who are helping pull all of this off. So it's an amazing kind of thing. But the most important thing I would say is back on the homepage, there's a big blue button back on the homepage, which is basically an invitation to join the discussion on Discord. So I don't know if you guys go on Discord, or people in the audience, they're watching this do. But this is a Discord where it's not about a project. It's a Discord about community. So it avoids a lot of the issues that you might see. So some people love Discord, and that's great, but some people have pointed out, rightfully so, some of the flaws in it, that there's a lot of noise there. But what we do try to do is use that Discord to have discussions around the type of conversations that we need to have about regulation, about the token mapping thing that the government is wanting to do, because they want to engage with the community to build the right kind of legislation, which is amazing, and more countries should look at it. And we talk about DeFi, and we talk about trading and investing, and obviously not financial advice. Like we advocate for that. Like, it's up to you guys, but we don't. It's much more about builders and community kind of focus
and
and
giving
learning.
people the tools, right?
That's it, because everyone, we don't know who's going to be and look, I hate to say this because I don't mean it in the way that people might think, but the Zuckerberg, the people, the Musk, the Bezos, the ones that are going to build the big, interesting, very useful kind of plays in Web3. Because I don't think it's like, sure, there might be some, they'll get rich. It's we are all commercial, but if we can have people that, yeah, they get rich, but they also distribute a lot more, that is going to be the way to do altruism in the future, where it's not like, wait until you're like 100 billionaire and then give away riches. Like, no, why don't you do it along the way and bring people up together, rather than pounce on people and push people down to build your factories, to do this, to do that, and then try to be altruistic after the fact, and who knows what you did along the way. Not saying that all those guys did bad things necessarily, but they're just synonymous. You know what I mean? But Zuckerberg, like, whether his fault or not, he was in control of a company that had those issues around data. Now, that wouldn't work in a space like this if people weren't voting for that. Like, and there are ways, there's going to be a battle between centralized and decentralized, but if we put all these tools out there and we make power available to the people, we just think that it's going to be a better world than we have right now.
Rising tide lifts all boats, as they say, and I think it's as more applicable to this than anything else I've heard, because people do actually get to share. Obviously, it depends on the structure of what it is you're talking about. But and Rob and I've talked about this many times. Things like music NFTs and that whole space is going to go bananas. It's going to go ballistic.
Speaking of music NFTs, like CryptoCon, you've got Ocean Floor Music, who's a good friend of ours, and they're bringing Carl Cox, one of his, like, not Carl Cox himself, I don't think, although I'll be surprised if he's there. But I think his new album, they're going to play it at the conference, and I think we might be the first to hear about it. But they're doing amazing things with music NFTs. So music is such a big thing. People undervalue NFTs. We just think of them as like profile pictures and JPEGs and collectible. Even if that's the case, who cares? Like, let people have their art. Like, people complain about it. It's like complaining about
I know there's a bigger picture, right? And we had Jordan Fogarty on last week, and that, the AFL, Australians know what the AFL is like. That we love our Australian football, and if the AFL are already jumping onto the blockchain with NFTs, it's about time the rest of Australia figured out that it's time to look into this stuff, because it's not just about JPEGs. There's utility, and it's basically about community and creating clubs too using NFTs.
There is so much that NFTs can do that people don't even realize it. We are in the genesis of NFTs. So traditionally, NFTs are just these things that you swap. If you've got an NFT with, like, it's got a character with blue eyes and a certain type of teeth, and I like another NFT, I actually would have to either like sell that my NFT, or I have to buy the other one. Like, I have to swap the whole thing out. In the future, we're going to have these NFTs that have certain traits, where each trait, so NFTs are based on a smart contract type called an ERC721. There's all these numbers and stuff, but that's just, that's the type that common NFTs are built on. There's going to be these future ones, and because it's open source software, we can develop. If you know how to, you can take it and extend and do something more. So we're building something that is like NFTs that can actually have subtraits. And what that means is that You could have an NFT where the tokens, there's sub tokens that are there for the eyes and other accessories, and you can swap in and out different features, NFTs. Reddit's kind of doing something like that as well. We're going to see more of that in gaming, but extending NFTs further, we're doing stuff with, so the shirt I'm wearing is something called Trade Flows, which is a payments kind of railway where right now, working as a consultant, for example, I'll work for 30 days, right? Send an invoice to a client, wait another 30 days maybe to get paid. And I'm not even guaranteed if that money's there. And sure, I can go to court, but as a small business owner, courts cost money, courts cost time. It's manual. There's no guarantee. Whereas we're building something where when I transact with someone else, whether it's in building and construction, whether it's across Web3 or as a consultant, as a small business, the other side has to show that they have money in a wallet, in escrow, right? And being able to see that the other side has the funds there, if they do something with the funds, I can pull up tools and stop work. If they don't like the work that I'm doing, they can put a stop to the payments, because you can have streaming payments. Like, you don't have to, there are these things called streaming payments, right? Where basically I can get paid every second and I can see the wallet increasing in fractions and stuff. And you've probably seen some of that, but combining that with escrow facilities that blockchain can have, wrapping it all around an NFT, and being able to have things like we can rate each other like Yelp or Uber or Reddit ratings. So if you're a bad actor in the space, you pay late, you do bad work or whatever, you will get outed. And it encourages people. And if you're constantly giving other people bad ratings, well, and it's not warranted, that's also a thing that will rate you badly. So there is this tit for tat kind of thing, but wrapping it all up is an NFT. So NFTs do not have to be, NFTs right now are pointers. We're doing one thing where basically the NFT can hold a balance. So if all of a sudden I'm doing work, right, and let's say I'm doing work for you, Rob, but then I have an agreement with Ed that I'm gonna get Ed's nice car, and in exchange for that, I'll still continue doing the work, but I can send my NFT to Ed. Ed can receive my payments that I'm doing for the work for you, Rob, because he's holding the NFT. So whoever's holding the NFT, because it's not just a pointer, because it holds a balance, whoever holds the NFT will be getting the funds. It's a fascinating world. We are scratching the surface.
Yeah, you just blew my mind.
Some of the stuff I hear and that I'm listening to, I'm going, this is just crazy stuff. Not crazy in a bad way, crazy in a good way. And I feel for people who have the mentality, they're poo-pooing everything, all associated with things like the Bored Ape Yacht Club, etc., and picturing those types of NFTs, not what the actual underlying utility is. But it's no different. Think of what the utility was in 1994, 1993 of the internet and web browsers. I mean, it was really, really basic shit compared to what we got now.
And that was decentralized back then as well. It was decentralized, and it needed certain railways to get some centralization in to make it a little bit easier to use. So I do feel like we'll get some centralization and bring the mainstream on board, because not everyone is a libertarian that wants self-sovereignty and stuff like that. Some people will trade freedom for ease of use and safety. And that's just the thing. But that's the ones that get on early. I feel like we will be rewarded for, getting into this space early. And, those early internet pioneers, look at the stuff that they've been able to do. We're very lucky looking at the space at the time we are now. A lot of business is about timing, and sometimes you can never really figure out the time. But I feel like we're very lucky to be in the timing we're in now.
Yeah, absolutely.
Absolutely.
Yeah, 100%. So maybe if we can do a bit of a real world example of something like in the DeFi world of a crypto loan. So traditional loans. So someone
Can I bring up an example? Because how I was introduced into DeFi, like Mark's just explained to me, DeFi is basically like the word internet. It is so vast, right?
Yes.
So vast. But when I was introduced to the term DeFi, probably like 18 months ago, was, when we were still in the bull market for cryptocurrency, and I was investing in certain tokens. And then through those crypto tokens. They were obviously lending out my crypto because I was staking pools, and then I was getting, and some of these crazy tokens I was going into, especially one was called Looks Rare, which is basically like an OpenSea aftermarket platform to sell NFTs. Basically, I was putting in 10 grand worth of Looks Rare tokens. They were then, I guess, they were lending out my tokens and then rewarding me with 136% interest. Like just these that's how I was introduced to DeFi. And of course, it's come crashing down now. But can you explain how that works?
Yeah. There's a term, and we've got to be hard on ourselves, but this is the way it was working. We have tokenomics, which is how does the token get distributed? What's the way in which this will work? The burn, how many tokens are created, all that kind of stuff. The economics of the token, it's token economics. What we saw in the majority for projects, NFT and otherwise, that were offering crazy yields. So think about this, right? Even Celsius and others that were like 20% guaranteed kind of yield, right? 20% in the traditional markets is a junk bond. 20% is a bond in a country you do not want to do business with, that you are being offered that high rate because there is a risk trade-off there. And because it was so low compared to other things in crypto, 136%, 1,000%, it seemed safe. So a lot of what happened was built off Ponzi-nomics. That's the word, right?
Yeah.
So if you know what a Ponzi scheme is, folks, look it up. Charles Ponzi, he was using new people coming into the system to pay off the loans of those that were there ahead. And it's shaped like a nice pyramid, right? Big pyramid scheme and stuff. And a lot of crypto was pyramid scheme-ish because the only reason that there was sustainability was because more people were coming in.
Other people were coming in.
But as soon as like something started crashing and stuff, then these loans started failing. People were having to pay them back, or the DeFi smart contracts were paying, the borrowers back, whatever it was, and people were kind of losing money and stuff, and things were all crashing. But the only way that you can have something that's sustainable, the best kind of tokenomics, is where you build something that has a utility that maybe gets a transaction fee. And so imagine there's a service like, I don't know, the invoicing service that we're trying to create, where we're basically clipping a fee as more people use it. If people don't use it, we don't make, you don't make money. If you don't make money, you don't offer the yield. But if people are using it, it's a really good utility and there's revenue generated, the yield coming from sharing the apportionment of revenue. That is a far more sustainable model that we should have had. People got way too excited about going, hey, we're going to go to the moon, or making this coin here, and pumping bags and stuff like that. And it's borderline criminal activity. And I'm happy to call it out because it was such bullshit that people were doing this, and coming from a TradFi background, it's like, how is this not regulated? So you can understand why there's hate.
And I knew that personally when I was going into these crazy things. I literally knew they were basically pyramid scams. But I also was I didn't get it right all the time. And
you got in early enough.
I got in early enough knowing, well, it's going to happen with or without me. I'm going to try and write some of these. And I was successful in some of them, but I got caught in the trap with some of the others. But some poor people don't understand, like they just think it's going to keep going.
It's not sustainable. It's like, oh, I can grow. You see some of these scammers where like, hey, we'll offer you 2% a day. 2% a day, you're a trillionaire by the end of the year. There's not enough money in the world to,
that's crazy.
Stupid
a day.
Do the math. Folks. And like the math isn't there.
Compound interest.
Compound interest. If someone's winning, who's on the other side of that trade? And there wasn't enough of these.
You can't figure out who's winning, then you're the loser.
You're the loser.
You know what's funny? Coming into this, exactly. If it's like, hey, 1 out of 3 people, and it's like, oh, Rob's fine, Ed's fine. Oh crap, it's me. But I couldn't figure out why was this making money? It didn't make sense to me. What is going on? What am I missing? We weren't missing anything. There was actually a lot of hype. There was a lot of marketing. People were spending on big things. Stadiums being bought, for example, right? And I don't know if they're all still being kept, just given that we're in a bear market, but I wouldn't be surprised if some of those naming rights to stadiums will change hands again, because that was a lot of money. Do you have that money in a bear market? I don't know.
Yeah. No, it's as we've said many times, we are certainly at the beginning of all this, and I hate to be the one to have to say this, but of course we've got to say none of this is financial advice. Do your own research.
Of course, yeah.
This is just a conversation between three guys.
If you ever follow what Ed and I say, it's not a good idea.
Yeah. Don't follow what we do.
The only advice I will say is not financial, is basically if you can get yourself educated in this space and maybe try to get involved. I see two things. There are people that are building, there are people that are investing. Kudos to both sides. I'm more of a builder. I was never a great investor. I wrote a lot of research that some worked, some didn't work. The traders were the ones that had a real eye for the market. I was more big picture. So my research and analysis and views back in the TradFi space were things that played out in the longer term, rather than like on a day by day.
Well, I think that's what day trading is about. Psychology. It's about the psychology of the market. Whereas a proper investor and someone who is going to make money, in my opinion, out of blockchain is going to be doing it for the long term, thinking 2 to 4 years down the track.
And if you're wanting to get involved in this space, if you're not looking to be an investor, you can get involved by working in the space. There's a call out for people that are in marketing, people that understand operations and running businesses, and people from traditional finance. You don't have to just be tech focused, although that is valuable, right? And people in tech can easily pick up and learn Solidity and Cairo and some of the other Rust and smart contract languages, but people of all walks of life can get involved. And let me tell you this, guys, because one thing I did notice that was really interesting in this space is that I'm doing these meetups, and we would hear things like, oh, it's so nice to have these meetups with all walks of life where you give, or we give, other people a chance to talk that maybe don't, they're on the fringes of society and they don't get much of a voice elsewhere in TradFi or whatever it is. And I'm like, after hearing, it sounds right, but you scratch below the surface, it's like, hang on, that sounds like victimization in a way, and perpetuating it. Because if you think like we're giving them a chance, it puts you above them, which is so wrong. But I don't blame people for saying it, but what it should be about is that we collectively are giving ourselves a chance to hear from perspectives that we don't normally have. And we're lucky to be early enough in Web3 to have that opportunity. It's about us giving ourselves a chance of being lucky. It's not about us putting ourselves over someone else. So that's it was an interesting one that, I've kind of seen recently come up in the space, but I'm sure there's going to be more insights the next time we do this show,
Yeah, 100%. So, look, Mark, we really appreciate you coming on today. And if you're watching this on YouTube or listening to it on Spotify, do the old like and subscribe for us, please. If you enjoy this content, it helps us a lot. We appreciate it. Mark's a legend. If you're going to the crypto convention, Oz Crypto Convention this coming weekend, which is the 17th and 18th.
You'll be watching this while you're there.
Because yeah. That's it. Mark will be on the stage talking, and he'll be on your screen talking to us, and we'll be in the crowd watching Mark talking, watching us on the screen. So it's going to be this whole headspin thing happening. Inception. Yeah, it's a great movie. One of my favorite movies. So yeah, again, appreciate you coming on, mate. I know you got a lot on you.
Yeah, there's lots more to talk about, but we'll just have to get you back on, Mark.
Yeah, absolutely. We've only touched the beginning of this whole DeFi conversation, but we wanted to get that out there so people who are sort of looking at it and wanting to learn more, they've got some places to go now, and yours is a great place to start. Collective Shift. We've had the guys from Collective Shift. Yeah, Ben's awesome. He's been on the show. He's got a great platform there. Head it to collectiveshift.io and check them out as well. Great education platform. Not sponsored by them, not sponsored by anyone.
You know what? Next year, Ed, we're going to have to ask David Haslock from the Australian Crypto Convention to pay us or something, because I'm kidding, but we've had Ben on our show, and we've had
Yeah.
Mark now, and we had Jordan on, and we had him on. 4 people that are speaking at Oz CryptoCon are speaking on our show.
And next week we've got Tracy from Bamboo. She's on too. So
it makes sense.
She's talking at the conference. I think you know Tracy, do you, Mark, from Bamboo?
Yep. We've had her at our meetups and stuff. She's flown in. They're awesome. Love the Bamboo crew, and we'll see them up there. It's going to be a big get together. As much as I've planned the conference of the talks I'm going to go see, I think I'll just get overwhelmed and just go where this, where there's food, where's the best coffee, who's speaking about this, like the agenda, the planning will be thrown out the window as
completely.
soon as we go through the doors.
Completely. It's just going to be random. I'm just going to go off the flow.
We'll see you guys up there.
Yeah, superb. So thanks again, everyone, for tuning in. Go and check out the defi.org.au and see what is happening at the Australian Defi Association. Thanks again, Mark. Thanks, Rob. And we'll see you on the next episode of the Asset Show. Be safe, and we'll see you then. Take care.
Thanks, boys.
Thanks, everyone.